this idea that we could focus for 5 hours on golf is a nonsense.
Everyone says it takes 10,000 hours to master anything, but what if you're wasting that time on useless golf tips? I've been there, so don't worry.
Because ultimately, at the end of the round, they don't ask you how many swings you've made,
No.
they ask you how many shots you've hit. Probably the most underused or an area where a lot of golfers could have.
That's why I've got Carl back on the channel to help bring out your full potential in your game. Carl is one of Europe's leading goal performance coaches, and one of his recent students, Ryan Fox, just won on the PGA Tour. So this is some real gold wisdom right here for you.
Now, Carl, most golfers will have a lack of confidence, anxiety on the golf course, and I would also put into this column of like they spend probably a lot of time on, if I could swear on this, useless shit.
Yeah.
That really doesn't really do much. Now, we saw a lot of questions in the comments on our previous videos about Louis Oosthuizen, the dot.
And the red dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, could this be something that we sort of alluded to, but could it be something that's really valuable to people?
Absolutely, Alex. I think it's something you can explore, really. And it comes back to that word attention. What's my attention on? And these days it's becoming more and more difficult to put our attention on the task in hand. We've got social media, we've got so busy lives, emails and all the rest of it. And then we come to play golf, and golf demands our attention. You know, you've got to solve a problem here to hit a shot. Now, in other sports, there's a trigger to focus your attention. When the referee's whistle blows at football, we now focus on the game. The umpire calls time in tennis. With golf, we don't have that, other than on the first tee, perhaps. But what you can do is use triggers. Now, what we did with Louis, we got him to, long story short, he was having trouble focusing on his shots, and we came up with this idea that what he was going to do was put a red dot on his glove, and before every shot he would look at that red dot, and that was a trigger just to ask a couple of questions in his mind about what shot he was trying to play, the feel of the swing. But in effect, anybody could do this. You could put a dot on your glove, and the dot then
There?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's, you know, black, as we said in the previous video, that's your playing focus, that's your playing colour. So basically, when it comes time to play your shot, you look at that, and that's a signal for your brain now, right, let's just attend to this moment, this shot, what I'm trying to do here.
Like, I'm really interested in this. Let me grab, I think this is going to be roughly around a 6-iron for me, but obviously Louis Oosthuizen, everyone says impeccable rhythm, impeccable ball striker. People are probably thinking, like, why on earth? Like, how on earth is he in the bit where he can't focus? He's got the best swing in the world, almost. So it's really interesting that a player in his position, his ability, is coming to you going, I just can't focus. Like, how does that conversation come about?
It started previously with what he said was happening in, I think it was the US Open, because prior to the Open win, he'd never made a cut in a major.
Oh, wow.
And before that, he said, I'm really getting into a lot of shots. I hit the shot, and then I walk off and think, I've just not been there. And I think it's something everybody can relate to, this, that how many shots do we hit, and we've not really taken in the lie, the win, the shot that we're trying to play. So attention is a difficult thing these days, but a simple thing like this, you know, is it going to stop an out-to-in swing? Is it going to stop people slicing? No, it's not. But what it's going to help you do is focus on this shot in this particular moment.
Rather than thinking about what the next shot is, or a hole coming up that you hate. Or
what's going to happen on 18 or 17 or whatever.
So, we can put this dot on. Give us 2 things that Louis was like going, okay, this dot associates with these 2 questions that gets me to really focus.
So, I think a key question for everybody to consider sounds so simple, but what does a good shot look like?
So do you want me to describe?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're on this hole here now, Alex, we've got par 3. What sort of distance are we?
So right, 186 yards we are.
Okay, so for you, playing this hole today, what does a good shot look like?
I'm seeing sort of a medium flighted 6-iron that's going to just drift on the wind back to that flag.
Okay, so now you've got a really clear image in your mind of what the shot is. The second question be, how does that feel? So what I would ask you to do now is to actually get into your 1 point again, feel the movement that you're going to make to produce that shot.
So just to make that clear, because I'm trying to hit a low, medium flighted one, would that be like addressing it slightly back, doing everything that I would do to do that?
So you connect, what you're doing, the first question is, what does the shot look like? you create the shot. The second question then is, how does that feel? So you're linking the shot to the feel of the swing.
Okay.
So in effect, Alex, what is happening here is the shot is creating the swing.
I like that. So just to give myself an idea, if I was trying to play a big fade, I would feel that.
Absolutely.
And then, but for this case, I'm going to make a practice swing that's very much more like that.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
So now with that, you know, you're basically, you know, with this cliche of play one shot at a time and stay in the present moment and all these things that we're all told, what you're doing here by using the dot is in the present moment. You're asking questions relative to this task which is going on now. You're feeling your golf swing that's going to produce that. Everything is happening right here and now. We're not stuck on what's happened in the past. We're not projecting into the future. We're right here.
Right, let's give that a go. I've asked myself the question, what shot do I see? I've described it to myself, and now I'm going to make that practice swing, which is that shot.
You're really feeling the shot. So you're programming that in.
That's it. And I think that for me then I was sort of just taking half a second just to really then almost see the ball flight.
Reconnect again, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit this one. Hey, look at this.
That's just dialed straight in there.
I do not want that back.
Superb.
That's a beautiful shot.
That's a perfect example, Alex, there. You've brought your attention to the task, you've been immersed in the shot, you've been really clear. It's like, my analogy for this is, it's like you're punching a postcode into a sat-nav. You know, if you've trained, you've got a sat-nav system here, you've punched the postcode in, you've seen the shot, then you've really felt the movement that's going to produce it, and then you've hit that great shot. Now, a lot of people will say, well, how does that relate to a 24 handicapper, maybe somebody who's at the other end of the game? It's still relative, because, you know, we can still get into trying to create shots on the golf course, because ultimately at the end of the round they don't ask you how many swings you've made,
no.
They ask you how many shots you've hit.
That's a really important point, and what I like about that is I think you can apply that to any shot as well.
Absolutely.
A chip shot, a drive.
Yeah.
Now, we all speak about like this area of the game on the tee, on a putt, hitting a drive over water. But is there anything that we can do, I mean, in between shots? Because I know that's where sometimes my mind can wander. Yeah. So if we wander down to this, and we'll hit a putt as well, see if we can make a 2 here, and let's get in Carl's mind about this area, because I don't think anybody talks about this.
You have seen how much Carl has helped me with my game, and I know the comments go crazy every time we have Carl on the channel. So I asked Carl, is there any way we give something back to you to say thank you for all the support? Carl said yes, being the nice guy he is. He's giving you all a free trial on his app right now. And also you can get 40% off a yearly subscription. Just simply, if you're a viewer of this video and a subscriber, click the link down below and use my code. Big shout out for Carl for this one.
So we've got this space and this time here, Carl, between, I've hit a lovely shot, and now I'm thinking about, okay, I can make it to it.
Do you know what, Alex? I would say that this is an area, it's probably the most underused, or an area where a lot of golfers could have some real breakthroughs. I call it the 95%, because it's a weird game that we play. 95% of golf isn't golf.
Yeah.
You know, we're either walking in between shots or in a buggy. And if you think about it, what does that time do? Or what does that time allow? It gives us time to think, and boy do we.
Dangerous, I think.
And usually it's dangerous stuff like, I should have done this, and what if I have to do this, and will this happen? And you know, you've maybe had a run of good holes and all of a sudden you've seen your name on the board in the clubhouse, and all this kind of stuff that we do. And to me, this time in between shots is an opportunity. It was a great phrase that I heard years ago, and it's we need to stop thinking and come to our senses.
Okay.
And what that means is that you could actually, as you're walking in between shots, you could tune into your senses. It could be the feeling of your feet on the floor, it could be what you see, it could be what you hear. And I know it sounds a little bit soft and fluffy, this, but it really is a way of in between shots, of getting back to this present moment, just being where you are, one step in front of another. And certainly this year, if you're in that situation, you know, you're trying to qualify for the Open or whatever, if you're in contention to qualify, last few holes, your mind's wanting to just race ahead, and all of a sudden you'll be at Port Roche, this, that and the other. Okay, you know, that phrase, be where your feet are. So a good one to start with, everybody could try this, is just walk a few paces and literally just place your attention on the feeling of your feet as you're walking along, and just notice what that does as you actually place your attention there.
Well, I can't think of anything else.
Exactly. You know, the only place you can be when you're tuning into your senses is the present moment. You know, this is something, I mean, wider ranging conversation on this, that we're in such a busy world and our brains are so overloaded all the time with so much stuff. You know, I love to just get out every day and at some point just tune into my senses, and I realise how busy my mind is most of the time, but it's just, golf can be an opportunity to just find a sanctuary really away from all the devices and all the emails and phone calls and busyness and everything. But I think there's a performance aspect to it as well, that when you're out there, as you're walking in between shots, if you can tune into your senses, it's a way of stopping your mind racing forwards or going backwards, and then you get to the next shot and you can fire your trigger and you play the next shot then.
Well, that's the way some people feel really tired after 18 holes. Not the physical aspect, but the actual mental aspect of it as well.
I think that's the key. You know, if you play golf regularly, you won't necessarily be physically tired, but people come off the golf course and they're absolutely mentally drained because they haven't switched off in between shots. This idea that we could focus for 5 hours on golf is a nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's an idea that you switch into the shot, use your trigger, and then come out of it, tune into your senses.
You know what, this is bringing back a memory when I was a kid. I remember playing my best ever round as a junior. I had a song in my head the entire round, but I was singing it in between each shot, so I wasn't thinking about what I was about to do next.
There you go. I've had some players who made real progress. I can think of one player, top player, who really had problems with how he was reacting to shots, and we did this, and he experimented with the feet, and experimenting with what he could see. But what really hooked him, he was tuning into the sounds around the golf course. And as he was tuning into the sounds of the golf course, he said it just allowed him to calm down a little bit in between shots and leave what had happened in the past and then get to the next shot and attend to that.
Right, well, let's see if we can hold this putt. I think that's something that I'm going to do, because I know my mind gets very racy ahead in terms of, ooh, I'm going to do really good today. So let's try and hold this putt. So using those little tips, it's almost like a trick, I would say, Carl. It didn't allow me to do anything else apart from just focus on what my feet were doing on the floor.
It's a way of distracting your mind in a way, in a very pleasant way. But now then you come to this, and now you can bring your attention back to this task, this putt that you've got, and use the tools that we've been talking about and developing to just put your attention where it needs to be to hold the putt. So a great question with putting, like so we talked about similar under the tee. Now, the simple question would be, what does this ball have to do to go in the hole? So ask yourself that question and then just verbalise the answer.
So what does this ball have to do? I think I'm seeing it has to start up this right in a start line of, like, say, like 3 feet right, and it's going to die in roughly around that last dark patch, I would say.
Perfect. What that question has done, that question has created for you a really vivid image in your mind's eye of what the ball's going to do. People get hung up on visualisation. All you've got to do is ask better questions. There's a great phrase I heard years ago from a guy called Tony Robbins, who's a world-renowned motivational guy. And he said, the quality of your life will be determined by the quality of your questions. And I think that's one of the most important things I've ever heard. And you could relate that to golf. You could almost say the quality of your golf will be related to the quality of your questions.
Because I think a lot of people go, oh, I'm not very visual, I can't do that.
Yeah, they go, I'm not visualising, I can't see that, and get so hung up on it. But just ask yourself that question. What does this ball have to do to go in the hole? The brain will go to work and you'll start to see an image of the line of the putt. You'll start to see the entry point. You're creating that map now for your body to respond to.
And I could just do that internally, can't I?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, don't go in.
I couldn't, could I?
Don't go in.
Oh, Tim, just shot a little
Nearly.
bit of pace.
But that's a perfect example. You've created the map. Your brain then can produce that map, give your body signals, and you've organised movement around that map that you've created in your brain. So you've brought your attention fully to that task, of that putt.
So using those tricks of turning yourself on, getting your right questions on the shot, and then almost meditating, relaxing within that space between shots is a key to being good at a golf.
The ultimate round of golf, and nobody will ever play this, I guess, the ultimate round of golf would be that as you're walking in between shots, you're either conversing with your caddy or you're conversing with your friends. That's a good thing to do. Or you're tuning into your senses, and then you get to each shot, and every single shot, think of it as a different puzzle to solve. You fire off that trigger, you get into the shot, you get into the puzzle, you create the image of the shot, the feeling of the swing of the putt, and then execute.
Awesome. Well, I know I'll be certainly using this on my road to the Open.